In the twilight hours, a weary traveler named Jack stumbled onto a deserted platform. His eyes were heavy with exhaustion, his body begging for rest. He was desperate to get home, and the midnight train was his only chance. The train slid into the station like a phantom, its empty carriages echoing with an unsettling hush. The cold metal doors creaked open, inviting him into its uncanny solitude. As the train lurched forward, Jack found himself swallowed by an eerie silence, punctuated only by the flickering lights and the rhythmic clatter of wheels on tracks. An icy gust swept through the carriage, raising goosebumps on his skin. His fellow passengers were few and far between, their faces shrouded in shadows. They were clad in clothing from bygone eras, their expressions vacant. The air around them felt thick, charged with an energy that sent chills down his spine. A woman, dressed in a faded 1920s flapper dress, turned towards him with a melancholic smile. Her voice was a whisper as she explained they were all passengers of a tragic accident that occurred on this very route years ago. They were spirits, trapped in an endless loop of their final journey. Jack's heart pounded in his chest as he took in her words. The realization of his ghostly company filled him with a dread that gnawed at his sanity. But before he could react, the spirits began to share their stories. One by one, they painted a vivid tableau of their last moments alive. A businessman, still clutching his briefcase, spoke of his family waiting at home. A young girl, her doll clutched tightly to her chest, whimpered about her mother's bedtime stories. Their tales were haunting lullabies of despair and horror, each one more terrifying than the last. As the train approached the site of the original catastrophe, the air grew thick with fear. The spirits began to relive their final moments, their screams echoing through the carriage as they braced for an impact that had already claimed their lives once. In a blind panic, Jack lunged for the emergency brake. Time seemed to stretch, each second an eternity as he willed the train to stop. With a shuddering jolt, the train screeched to a halt, inches away from the site of the spectral collision. As dawn broke, the spirits faded away, their mournful eyes lingering on Jack as they disappeared. He was left alone in the cold morning light, the silence even more chilling without the spectral passengers. Finally, the train limped into the next station. Jack stumbled out onto the platform, the echoes of the ghostly stories still ringing in his ears. He was free of the midnight train, but the terror of his nightmarish journey would haunt him forever. In a quiet corner of the world lived a quaint old lady, Miss Agnes, and her enigmatic feline companion, Whiskers. Whiskers was no ordinary cat. It held a peculiar power. With every twist and turn of its yarn, it wove delicate threads of time, creating portals to eras past and future. One day, Whiskers began to age at an alarming rate. Its fur lost its luster, and its eyes dulled. The playful, vibrant creature that once danced around with its yarn seemed to be fading away. But as Whiskers weakened, something terrifying began to occur. The portals it wove with its yarn started to fray, opening up randomly and unleashing creatures from different times into Miss Agnes's cozy home. A monstrous dinosaur from the Cretaceous period lumbered in her living room, its guttural roars shaking the walls. An ethereal phantom from the future drifted through her kitchen, casting an eerie glow on the antique china. Miss Agnes's peaceful life was thrown into chaos. With a sinking feeling, she connected the dots. Her beloved Whiskers' deteriorating health was causing the portals to unravel, releasing these horrifying creatures. In her desperation, Miss Agnes turned to ancient texts and looked for wisdom from local mystics, hoping to find a cure for whiskers and a way to close the portals. After days of relentless pursuit, she discovered the existence of a mystical yarn, spun from the golden fleece of a mythical creature. This yarn could restore Whisker's health and seal the rogue portals. However, it was located in a dangerous era, fraught with monstrous beasts and deadly traps. With a steely resolve, Miss Agnes took a deep breath and stepped into one of the portals, her heart pounding in her chest. She found herself in a prehistoric land, its atmosphere thick with fear and uncertainty. Towering beasts with fearsome claws and sharp teeth roamed the land, their roars echoing in the distance. Barely managing to conceal her terror, she navigated through the treacherous terrain, evading monstrous creatures, deadly plants, and precarious cliffs. After what felt like an eternity, she spotted it, the golden fleece, glinting in the sunlight. With a surge of adrenaline, she snatched up the mystical yarn and raced back towards the portal, pursued by an enormous, terrifying beast. She leaped through just as the creature lunged at her, its roar of frustration ringing in her ears as she landed back in her living room. Back home, she quickly wove the magical yarn into Whisker's favorite toy mouse. The effect was immediate. Whiskers perked up, its eyes regaining their old sparkle. As it playfully batted the toy around, the portals began to close, one by one, sending the creatures back to their respective times. The ordeal was over. Miss Agnes and Whiskers returned to their peaceful life, their secret safe. However, the echoes of the terrifying roars and the sight of the monstrous beasts haunted Miss Agnes's dreams. Her quaint home was forever marked by the chilling events, a reminder of the time when her world was turned upside down by the cat's cradle conundrum. The Dimensional Dolphin. In the vast, unexplored depths of the Pacific Ocean, a group of marine researchers stumbled upon a peculiar sight. A dolphin with an unusual scar on its forehead. But it wasn't the scar that intrigued them. It was the creature's uncanny ability to vanish and reappear in the water at will. Among them was a brave diver named Jake. During one of their observations, Jake was sucked into a vortex that the dolphin had left in its wake, disappearing from sight. A chilling silence fell over the remaining team as they stared into the swirling portal, their hearts pounding in their chests. Jake found himself in a world unlike any he'd ever seen. It was an underwater realm, filled with alien-like aquatic creatures and landscapes that seemed straight out of a nightmare. The waters were darker, colder, and filled with a sense of dread. He realized with a jolt of terror that the dolphin used these portals to travel between dimensions. But this new world was not devoid of threats. Jake encountered monstrous beasts, their eyes glowing ominously in the dark, their bodies far larger and more terrifying than any known sea creature. Back in our dimension, his team watched helplessly as more portals began to open, letting some of these horrifying beasts into their world. With a sense of impending doom, Jake managed to locate the dolphin again, communicating his predicament through frantic gestures. Meanwhile, his team back home was working tirelessly, devising a plan to close the portals and halt the invasion of the otherworldly beasts. Jake mounted the dolphin, gripping tightly onto its slippery back as they sped towards the portal, pursued by the grotesque creatures. Simultaneously, his team started emitting high-frequency sound waves, an attempt to disrupt and close the portals. just as a gigantic beast lunged at Jake. They shot through the portal, returning to our dimension. At the same time, the research team's plan worked. The portals began to shrink under the influence of the sound waves, finally disappearing altogether. Seeing the chaos it had inadvertently caused, the dolphin gave Jake a sorrowful look, then swam away into the depths of the ocean. The team was left in stunned silence, their hearts still racing from the terrifying ordeal. They had a story to tell, a tale so outlandish and horrifying that no one would believe it. In the aftermath, they made a pact to keep their encounter a secret, vowing to protect the dolphin and its extraordinary abilities. Their research continued, but they were forever changed. Every ripple in the water, every unusual marine creature they encountered sent chills down their spines, a haunting reminder of their brush with the other dimension. Their experience was a chilling testament to the mysteries that lay beneath the surface of the ocean, a world filled with wonder and terror in equal measure. It was a tale of the dimensional dolphin, a tale of incredible horror and breathtaking beauty.